This really should tell you a lot of things about how things are done in Ukraine. And guess what we have here? Another outdoor gym. It's not a kopeyka because it has another very important and interesting thing that I want to show you is this is very common in all of these ex-Soviet Union countries. Good afternoon from sunny Ukraine. It's finally starting to feel like spring today. I mean, I think this is the first official day, to be honest with you. And I really could not be excited. And I probably speak on behalf of everybody here. Anyway, so today's plan, we're gonna get some nice coffee. We're gonna find a restaurant that has outdoor seating because it's still quarantine. It's still about 2 or 3 weeks left. I think 2 weeks left of quarantine. And we're gonna find a restaurant and then we're gonna do a little bit of walking around, some interesting things, gonna show you some interesting neighborhoods of Kiev. So we found a place here on Pushkinsky which has tables outside, and as a result you can sit outside instead of having to sit inside. And so we're waiting for our food here. Should be coming any minute. Alright, so we got a turkey sandwich here with some cheese or something, and we have a triple cheese sandwich. We have some coffee and then my cappuccino, which I just finished. We just finished our brunch, and I gotta tell you, as somebody who has lived in New York and the US for most of my life, I treasure these brunches, you know, with family in Manhattan, go somewhere to a nice cafe in East Village. Anybody who has lived in New York probably knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, I love brunches, and this is an example of a typical brunch. A Sunday brunch where there's almost nobody on the streets. Really great. Another thing I want to show you, the street that you're seeing right here, this street here, this is Pushkinsky. And Pushkin is a writer, and he's a very famous figure in the ex-Soviet world. Okay, so in Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, everybody knows about him, right? Everybody knows who he is. And pretty much in all the big cities there's a street called Pushkinsky, okay? This is the street here in Kiev. And you know, you go to Moscow, you go to another big city, you're gonna have the same street, you're gonna have the same thing. What's important about this street is this was the first street in Kiev that they decided to remodel, because before this street looked like absolute crap. And they decided that this is gonna be the first street they are gonna remodel. What they did is they widened it, because before this all of this was parking spaces. Okay, they widened it, they put these parking blockers, these little things here so that cars don't come in, and they also made this yellow lane here for disabled people, I believe, visually impaired people, that they can walk along it. And they did it on both sides, and as a result you have a very beautiful street. And they did it for you know, all the way until the end, and this is fantastic. And then later on they started doing this in other streets, and as a result we actually, you know, this was the first street in Kiev which became a really nice street, a really comfortable street to walk on. It started to feel like, you know, you're actually part of Europe. The only problem is that a lot of people, you know, the older generation, they're used to parking on the sidewalks. They're very used to being able to park on the sidewalks. So they started to remove these blocks here, these parking preventing blocks, and that is a major problem here once people started to do that. And so this is what I'm talking about, right? They're installing these things, and then you have people forcibly removing them so that they can park on the street. But I haven't really seen anybody park here. They probably parked here a couple of times and then they realized that they really can't park here, that people are going to have a problem with them parking here. And so this is one of the issues here in Ukraine, is that when people start to do good things, other people, they resist, and they want it to be returned back to normal. And so hopefully that's going to improve the whole mindset, mentality of the people here. Should improve, hopefully, after a few generations, okay? And so right now we're going to walk on Pushkinsky, and we're going to walk to our favorite, at least my personal favorite, shopping center. And it is closed right now, but the stores that we need to go to should be open right now. This is a shopping center that I used to go to all the time. Still do from time to time. My favorite, one of my favorites. And we're gonna see if it's open. We're gonna see if the stores we need to go are open, and tell you more about it later on. This right here is Kinoteatr Kiev, and this is one of the oldest and coolest movie centers here, movie theaters here. Unfortunately, they closed it because they got into some argument with the city government, and they closed it even before the quarantine. And I used to come here all the time. This is amazing. This is this really beautiful old building, and they closed it, and it's been closed for like 2 years now, which is a complete shame because it's a beautiful landmark here in Kiev. In front of us right here, this is Gulliver, and this is the only one, I would say, the main shopping center here in the center of Kiev. And this is a place I have a lot of memories with because I used to spend here so much time. I lived all over Kiev, and I used to come here to work, to eat, to do all kinds of things. And this is my favorite shopping center. It's not the biggest shopping center, it's not the most luxurious, it's not the coolest one, but this is one of my favorites here. So as you can see, everything is closed at the moment. All the stores, everything is closed. The only thing that's open, or should be open, is the main supermarket called Silpo, which is actually a pretty good supermarket, and maybe some restaurants on the top and at the bottom of the floor. So we're gonna head down towards Silpo. I'm gonna check it out. I want to show you a little bit, and we'll see what's actually working at the moment. And so as you can see, everything is open right now on the basement level. We have Silpo here that you can enter. You have a couple of other stores, but we are gonna go to a animal store because we need to get for our resident cat something very important. Man, they got a lot of things here. So if you have any animals, this is the place to come. Look at this. Look at all these bowls. Pretty amazing. We got food. We got all kinds of carriers. Everything that you need. They really have nice stores here in Ukraine when it comes to animals. So check this out. The store can work. This place can work. But the store that sells iPhone cases cannot work. How crazy is that? And here we have some electronic cigarettes. So tell me, where's the highest risk of getting sick? Over there or coming to buy an iPhone case? But you can sell cases in this store, but you cannot sell them here. And here we have another place that sells iPhone cases, which is closed. But over there we have a big supermarket chain that sells all kinds of computer tech gear, which is open. So I don't understand the logic. Maybe somebody can explain to me why one is open and one is closed. Shopping complete, and I cannot tell you guys how great it feels to finally be walking around with such beautiful weather. It's like 16 degrees today. I don't think it's gonna last long. I think it's gonna get colder again, but man, what a great feeling, honestly. This was a tough winter, so it finally feels great to enjoy some spring weather. In my opinion, one of the biggest problems in Ukraine, in Kiev, as well as in the rest of Ukraine, is the choices of food. There's not a lot of variety. There's not really any really good non-Ukrainian food. One exception is the burgers. The burgers are starting to become really good, but other than that, there's really no true international food. And so if you're tired of your borsches, if you're tired of even the burgers, you want to try something else, there's not a lot of options. That is except this place right here. This is Pita Kiev. And this, in my opinion, is one of the best choices for non-traditional food here. And this is Israeli food, and it's really good actually. So if you want to try something different, something new, I highly recommend checking out this Pita Kiev, which is a good spot. Quality food. You have a lot of options here. You can get shawarma kebab. You have this pita cheeseburger, which I do recommend. You can get even the double cheeseburger here. You have the chicken shawarma, the steak and eggs. A lot of good stuff. Pair it up with some lemonade and you're good to go. Highly recommended if you're interested in something like this. As we just ate, we're not going to be getting a pita today, but if we were hungry, we would definitely be entering that place and having a pita or two. And we are here located in a very beautiful and desirable neighborhood. And so on that side you see the river of Dnieper, which is the main river here in Kiev, and this is the river that kind of goes from north to south, all the way from the Belarus border down to the Black Sea. And this is the main river here in this country, and there's a lot of cities built on this river. But in terms of Kiev, we are currently in the northern part of Kiev in a neighborhood called Obolon. And Obolon is a very historical neighborhood. It's a very desirable neighborhood. But one thing you have to understand is that Obolon is really two neighborhoods. There's the old Obolon neighborhood, which has the old Soviet buildings, the Soviet Khrushchevkas, the communist buildings and all that. But we are not there right now. We're actually in the new Obolon, okay? Because all the buildings that you're gonna be seeing today, this boardwalk, all of this region was built fairly recently. Most of it was built in the 2000s, some of it was built before that, some of it was built after. And so this is considered by the locals here as a fairly new neighborhood. And so we're gonna be exploring it today. We're gonna be walking around, I'm gonna be showing you, we're gonna be talking about the pros and cons of this neighborhood. The first thing that I want to bring to your attention is this big road here, okay? And in Russian, this is called Naberezhnaya. Naberezhnaya means na beregi. Bereg means coast, which is what you're seeing here, this beautiful river of Dnieper. And so a normal translation into English would be a boardwalk, something that you have in coastal American cities like in Brighton, in New York City, you have a boardwalk. Atlantic City, there's a boardwalk. And all across this boardwalk here, you have these beautiful buildings. Take a look at these houses. These private houses that are not cheap. They probably cost an arm and a leg. But as a result, if you live there, you have this beautiful view of this river here on this side. And so I want to point out that here in Ukraine, a lot of these cities that are here on this river, that are Dnieper, and there's plenty of cities on Dnieper. You have a city called Dnipro, or Dnieper as it was called before, or some people still call it Dnepropetrovsk. It's also on the river of Dnieper, and there's also a really good Naberezhnaya, a really good boardwalk over there. And in fact, in that city, that is the main place where a lot of people go in the summer to relax, to have fun. That is the main area here. Kiev, on the other hand, has a lot of other areas. It's a big city. There's a lot of neighborhoods to check out. So this Naberezhnaya here is not the main attraction as compared to some of the other cities. But that is not the only cities. There's plenty of other cities except Dnieper, except Kiev. There's all these cities right along the coast. You have Zaporozhye, you have Cherkasy, you have these other cities right along Dnieper. And each of them has a Naberezhnaya that has access to this river so that people can go walk around and enjoy life just a little bit. And as is customary in a lot of these former Soviet Union republics, anywhere you have a really nice area, a really nice zone, you're gonna have something to do with sports, something to do with working out. And so you have this, we call it a sportivная площадка, which is a sport area for people to hang out. As you can see, you have all these kids doing all kinds of interesting things. And there in the distance, we have more people working out, more people enjoying themselves. And this is really cool actually, because they could have just had the main boardwalk, but this really enhances the quality of life of people. We have some guys training there, some boxing happening here. Now you should notice something different in the environment, because on my left hand side we're no longer seeing the houses, we are seeing regular apartment buildings. Here are the main apartment buildings here. Some people have really good views when they live here, and these are all new apartment buildings. These were not here during Soviet times. Actually, there was nothing here during Soviet times. All of this is relatively new. You have these tall buildings here in the distance. Then you have some of the shorter buildings. They're still fairly tall. They have about 10 stories here. This building looks like it has about 20 to 30 stories. On my left-hand side, we have a court here. It looks like it's a soccer field, but could be used for just about anything. We have a volleyball court here in the distance. We have this structure here, and this structure looks like it's something that was done for kids to climb on. Has all of these interesting challenges, all of these areas they can climb on. And what do we have here? This is not a Kopeka because it has double headlights on each side. Kopeka has one headlight on each side. We have Kievsky number plates, and look at that beautiful interior. This is not quite a leather interior, but it still looks fairly cool. And what's interesting, even the number plates are not attached to the car. They're inside the salon. Zhiguli 1600. You can probably buy something like this for around $500–600. These buildings are obviously not as nice as some of the previous buildings, and that is because these buildings were built somewhere in the late, I would say late 80s, maybe even late 90s. This is something I would call post-communist architecture. These are still that communist architecture that I detest so much, but they're not as they're not the similar architecture that you see those 5 or 10 story buildings. These are like these tall buildings, but just by looking at them, you know that these are, you know, they have this communist signature on them, communist imprint. Because now, you know, nowadays in the 21st century, you will never see anybody even remotely thinking about building something like this. Here you have a beautiful church. And all of this property is churches, right? Because you have this one cathedral, you have a couple of other buildings down there in the distance, and like all churches here in Kiev, they look pretty amazing. Now we're at an actual beach. Check out this beautiful white sand, just like in Miami. For those of you who've been to Miami, it's the same sand as in Miami, and you can pretty much just chill here. You can relax. You can do a little bit of sunbathing, as the case is, especially today, which is a perfect day to do some sunbathing. And you even have this little walkway that directs you directly to the water. Isn't this amazing? They even got some ducks in the distance. Let's see the water. Oh, it's freezing. Absolutely freezing water. I would not swim there, at least without a wetsuit, but the ducks have no issues there being at all. And guess what we have here? Another outdoor gym. It looks like they have these outdoor gyms all over Ukraine. Everywhere you walk, you're gonna find an outdoor gym, just like with the Zhiguli. Pretty crazy. Very similar to the one I did in the other video. Nicely improvised. Maybe I'll do a couple of sets myself. Check out the super improvised gym. How, you know, you have this pull downs, these lat pull downs, and actually picks up that thing, and you can attach more things if you want. That was a pretty good workout. And remember, this is quarantine right now. The gyms are closed. They're gonna be closed for another 2 weeks, but thankfully we have warm weather, and with some creativity, some ingenuity, we can actually create a makeshift gym and work out without all the gym equipment, which is really something that I really like about these post-Soviet countries. And so instead of finding a staircase, we can actually simply walk up like this. My woman there has also decided to try this little shortcut as well. And now I want to show you the real Soviet parts, right? Not the new Obolon, but the actual older Obolon. And this is right here across the river. We are going to be entering these complexes, these buildings that are 100% Soviet. Because this is what a Soviet building looks like, and this is the Soviet area here. And actually, as we crossed the road and entered here, I had this deja vu feeling that I was on a beach somewhere, because I still see sand. I have some sand in my shoes, and it's almost like we are in some, you know, like some southern city at the moment. This is what the Soviet complex looks like. You have all these Soviet buildings here, these 10 stories. Kind of like a Khrushchevka building. You have this beautiful grass, you have some benches here for relaxation, you have the children's playground, which you're always gonna see no matter where you are. And in fact, there are two. There's a big one in the distance, and then there's a smaller one here in front of me. And this is your typical Soviet neighborhood right across the river of Dnieper, which makes it really nice to go out during the summer. They have a lot of sunlight. It's a beautiful weather, and then along with the Naberezhny, you can walk around, go to restaurant, and, you know, enjoy life. We are currently walking towards one of these Soviet buildings, and one thing I want to point out is you have the entrance over there, and then you have this one long line here, and this is an elevator. And this is very, very typical of the Soviet buildings. They have these big kind of these long lines. This is this Ukrainian architecture. I would say in Kiev this is very, very common. You don't really see that too much in other countries, in other ex-Soviet Union countries, but this is very, very common in Ukraine. Наконец-то весна наступила, да?
Зимой холодно, потом жарко будет.
Ну да. Все правильно, уже пережили, выжили. Another thing I want to bring to your attention is these tires here, which is very, very common across ex-Soviet Union countries. And why do they have them? Well, many reasons. You can pretty much do anything that you want from these tires. You can create an area for plants. You can use it as an area to separate the garden, the soil from the asphalt. You can create a punching bag out of it. There's so many uses out of it, and that is why they're used all over Soviet Union. In Russian, we call these buildings apanelka, and that is because if you look at this building, you see how it's kind of glued together. You have each area with the each room, you would say, with the window there. It has this line going across it that's glued together. Another very important and interesting thing that I want to show you is that if you look at this building, you see how you can see the bricks there, right? All over the building you see bricks. But if you look at that apartment over there, you see how it's different color, and that is because they probably did two things there. The first thing is they added a little bit of insulation there, okay? Because panelkis by nature are rather cold buildings. They're not really comfortable in the winter, so they insulated it. And the second thing they did is they painted it. And so this is very, very common in all of these ex-Soviet Union countries, because even though you probably got this apartment for free when you were living in the Soviet Union, each person is responsible for, they can decide how they want that their individual apartment to look like. So some people, they want to remodel it, and they remodel it internally, but they also paint it externally. And as a result, you have a building that looks all the same except for a couple of apartments, a couple of windows that were painted in a different color. And you see this all over the place in all of these ex-Soviet Union countries. If you look very, very closely, obviously this is not something you see in America, in the West, but in Soviet Union you see this all the time. Now we're walking back into the new Obolon, and this is one way to think about this area here, is that you have this old Obolon, this former Soviet Union, and then you have this new developments there, and this is kind of where the old meets new, the east meets west, which is something you're gonna see all over ex-Soviet Union countries, simply because what the Soviets did wasn't enough. They had to build new buildings, they had to create more infrastructure. Some of the private residences here, private houses, not of an apartment building. As you can see, they have two fences here, right? They have this main fence here, and then they have a house fence over there. And this really should tell you a lot of things about how things are done in Ukraine. It should tell you about security. It should tell you about zoning laws. It should tell you about city planning, a lot of things, because obviously, right, the normal thing to do would be to remove all of this and just keep the houses and make this street a little bit wider as it was over there. But as soon as we enter the street, as soon as we enter to these houses, you now have two fences, and even this fence is not even see-through, and as a result they're taking up a lot of this real estate. And again, you're not going to see this too much in the West because of zoning laws and common sense, but in Ukraine, as you can see, anything goes. Here you have the only house which decided to use some common sense and not really build a second fence, because as you can see, this is how they should look, right? You have the street here, you have a house, and then you have their own fence. But everybody else, they decided to extend it outwards, build a second fence, and make this street, this pedestrian street, a lot more narrower than it was previous. Now we are coming back to where we started, and with those words I wanted to close this video by telling you and asking you what you think about this neighborhood. And also I want to tell you that would I personally live in this neighborhood? I would probably not live in this neighborhood because I like to be in the center. I really prefer in the center. And if I want to live near a body of water, it would probably be a water, not a river, because I'm more of a kind of a sea and ocean guy myself. And furthermore, the metro is fairly far from here. So there's a lot of minuses that really are important for me. But what about you? Would you be interested in living in this neighborhood, or would you be interested in living in a slightly different neighborhood? Let me know below. Hope you really like this video. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.